Elden Ring Nightreign's castle is a central location on its map. It's filled with elite mini-bosses who drop tons of runes and loot. And if you need to stock up on weapons, weapon passives, and consumables, there's tons of chests with a lot of loot in them too. And if you know where to look, there's even a few secrets that'll give you an edge throughout your expedition. Hi everyone, my name's Diabudor, and today I'm going to show you the layout and secrets of Elden Ring Nightreign's castle. As far as Nightreign's locations go, the castle has one of the most complicated layouts. Not only does it have a complicated exterior floor plan, it also has a bunch of interior locations too. So I can't really show everything that you need to see on an aerial view, but I'm going to show you what I can for the exterior, and then I'll give you a run through of the castle so that you can see where to go and what routes to take and where to look for loot. You see I put a compass in the corner of the screen because we're looking at this from the east side right now. So having the cardinal directions in mind can help you memorize the locations and the layout of the castle. So keep in mind that the north is on the right side of the screen in this image. The majority of the interesting loot and enemies are in the main keep, which is in the west side of the castle. So you see that's where the courtyard is, and the north and south ramparts, the rooftop. All that stuff is part of the main keep. The gatehouse that we see here on the east side of the castle really doesn't have anything interesting in it, except for the loot tower that you see there. There are a few enemies on the other side of the gatehouse from where we're looking at it right now, but I mainly marked it as a reference point so we can talk about stuff compared to where the gatehouse is. The gatehouse is basically just the main entrance into the castle. There are a bunch of other side entrances, and you'll usually use those instead of a gatehouse to get in, and I'll show those when we get there. The main interesting thing on this side of it is the loot tower, where if you climb up that broken rampart wall there, which you see I marked with the red arrow, you can jump up into the tower, and there's 3 chests in there that can drop a bunch of loot. And actually, you can see that this spot is a potential spawning location at the very start of the expedition. So if you spawn here, you can immediately run over to the loot tower and grab a bunch of loot right off the bat with no effort. All you gotta do is climb up the broken wall, and then you just do a jump and clamber up the wall into the tower, and here you are with 3 large chests full of loot and consumables and stuff. So it's a great place to start your run if you are next to the castle. So there are 3 different enemies types that can spawn in the castle. There are Crucible Knights, Trolls, and Banished Knights. The Crucible Knights will have just a bunch of Crucible Knights patrolling around different spots of the castle. There's no like mini, like trash mobs or anything like that. It's just the Crucible Knights. The Banished Knights will have a bunch of Banished Knights and Exile Soldiers in various spots throughout the castle. And in the courtyard, there will be an Elder Lion as an elite enemy alongside a few Banished Knights. And then in the Troll Castle, it'll be Exile Soldiers around the castle, and there will be trolls on the south and north ramparts, and they will throw giant pots at you, and they're a pain in the ass to deal with, but I'll show you a route for how to deal with them, which I didn't come up with, but I'll talk about that when I get there. So depending on the enemies that you run into on your current expedition, you're going to want to hit these locations in different orders, but they'll generally have about the same loot, right? So like, for example, in the courtyard, if you're fighting Crucible Knights, there will be one guy with a spear and one guy with a sword and shield. The spear guy will drop a loot sphere. But if it's the Banished Knights, then there will be an Elder Lion plus a couple Banished Knights and some Exile Soldiers, and the Lion will drop the loot sphere. But if it's Trolls, then there will just be a bunch of Exile Soldiers in the courtyard, and none of them drop loot spheres, and you usually want to avoid the courtyard at all costs because the Trolls will rain down fucking pots on you, and you will die repeatedly, right? But with that said, those Exile Soldiers in the courtyard will drop a ton of runes if you kill them all, and there's some loot down in the courtyard. So it's not really a matter of which spots you hit, as much as it is which order you hit them in. Because generally you want to clear out the entire castle if you can. It's a really good thing for either the second half of day 1 or the first half of day 2. You go to the castle, clear it out, you can get a couple 100,000 runes worth of, enemies and stuff here, and that'll get you pretty close to level 12, which is like the soft cap for your level. It takes like 300,000 runes to get to level 12, and you get like 200,000 or so by killing all the enemies in the castle, right? So it's really lucrative no matter what. You just want to know which order to hit the different spots in to make it less of a pain in the ass. And so when it comes to the order you hit stuff in, there are 2 things to keep in mind. Number 1 is that the rooftop should always be last. There is a boss in the basement, which you can usually start the castle with, and then there's a boss on the rooftop, The one on the rooftop is usually significantly harder than pretty much any other boss that you're likely to run into. So you want to be a pretty high level and have decent gear for when you go to fight that. So usually you clear out the rest of the castle, level up, get loot and stuff because the chests and the enemies will drop weapons and shit, and then you go up to the rooftop and fight that boss. Number 2 is that if it's trolls, you want to work your way from the south ramparts in a clockwise direction, right? Like I said, I'll show this when I do the gameplay footage, and I didn't come up with this route. I'll credit the person that I got it from when I get there. But you start with the south ramparts, then you go through over to the north ramparts, then you go to the east north rampart, or I guess the northeast rampart, whatever you want to call it, and then you loop back and you go to the southeast rampart. And so again, to put that in simpler terms, if it's Troll Castle, you start from the southwest rampart and work your way around in a clockwise motion, and that'll make it easier to deal with the trolls. So here's the route through the Troll Castle. I got it from this guy, Zone X. I don't know if he came up with it or not. I don't really care either way. I'm just giving him credit because that's where I saw it. So, yeah. But anyway, so in order to not get owned by the trolls, you want to start at the southwest end of the castle, which you saw on the map there. There's a broken staircase that you climb up. You go up that, and instead of fighting the troll on the southeast rampart, first you come up the stairs and fight the one on the southwest rampart. This guy has a couple exile soldiers with him, so that's why I used my ult there to fuck them up. Once they're all dead, then you can go for the troll himself, kill him. He will drop a loot sphere, so make sure you grab that. Then you're going to head north up to the northwest rampart. Along the way, there's a few guys you can kill for some runes, and there's some loot. There's also a merchant that'll show in a bit. If you need a weapon upgrade, then you can go to him and get the weapon upgrade, and that'll make it easier to kill the trolls. But yeah, so you go to the northwest rampart, kill the troll over here. Again, make sure you grab the loot from his loot sphere. I see people miss it for some reason. It's marked on your fucking screen with a marker. Make sure you grab that shit. Then you want to come around here to where this troll is on the northeast rampart. If you have your ultimate or something, then you can do that to take out the exile soldiers that are with him. And what you want to do is lead the troll over here to this corner by the broken ladder. That way, the troll on the southeast rampart can't throw pots at you because there's a gallows in the way, and that'll block the pots from hitting you. So again, credit to that Zone X guy. He's the one who I saw this from. Not my original idea, but this is supposed to be a pretty comprehensive guide about the castle, so I want to include it here. But yeah, so lead the troll over to this corner of the rampart, and you can kill him without getting blasted by the pots from the other troll, because you see the gallows blocks it. Also, make sure you loot the big chest that's here. It can drop rare stuff, so it's a good thing to grab. Grab your loot sphere, and then you're going to go back around the castle. While you're sweeping back through, you can loot anything you missed along the way, and then on the southeast rampart is the fourth and final troll. You can kill him easily because you killed the northeast guy, so he won't be throwing pots at you, and that makes dealing with this shit a lot easier. Also, something I want to say is that if you find things like kukris in the crates and stuff throughout the castle, they're really good against the trolls because the trolls are super weak to status effects. So you saw I threw a bunch of kukris at him, and I bled him out after only like 2 or 3 kukris. So those are useful if you pick them up while you're running through the castle. And like I said before, now that the trolls are dead and they won't be raining down pots on you while you're in the courtyard, now you can drop down here, kill the few soldiers that are down here, and loot those 3 chests that you just saw, which are the main loot for the courtyard. Now, if you've got a different enemy type, so again, that's either the Banished Knights, like you see here, or the Crucible Knights, then you can hit them in any order. For these enemy types, they're basically all just like separate fights and don't really affect each other, so it doesn't matter which order you hit them in. With that said, regardless of the enemy type, including trolls, I recommend you start from the basement and work your way up through the castle. This for a few reasons. So one, you saw I just hit that golden tree there. That gives you a 10% rune boost for, I want to say 2 minutes. I'm not sure exactly how long it is. But yeah, so you hit that and then you kill the enemies in the castle and you get more runes, so that makes it much more valuable. And number 2 is that the boss that's down in the basement usually isn't that hard. Of the roster of bosses that can spawn down here, the only concerning one is the Bell-Bearing Hunter, and that's really only because he's super tanky. So this boss is usually pretty easy to kill, and then once you kill him, not only does he drop rare loot, but you also come up into the main keep, and you get a guaranteed talisman from this big chest. And here's something nobody knows about. There's a couple hidden chests up here. So in this room with the Talisman chest, if you come over to the walls, there's like these barrel racks that you can climb up, or whatever the hell they're called. And then on top of them, there are a couple chests. I don't know what kind of loot they drop, because this is like the only time I've ever looted them. But there is more loot there, and it is technically a secret, because no one knows about it. So that's the second secret of the castle, and that's the kind of stuff you only get here at Diabedor. But yeah, so killing the boss gets you started off with good loot, and then there's the talisman and the chest there, so you already have a pretty big advantage. And then you can either, if it's Banished Knights or Crucible Knights, you can come out into the courtyard and fight the enemies here. Or if it's Trolls, you can go out the other door of the main keep out the west side and go around to the southwest rampart tower to do the troll route instead. I also want to quickly talk about shortcuts you can take to navigate around the castle. So there are places like from the ravine, if you take the spirit stream, you can jump straight up into the northeast rampart. So that's a quick way to get in without having to run all the way around the castle. From the southeast rampart, there's a broken wall next to it, which you can use to climb straight up onto the rampart. And there's a bunch of spots where you can climb up around the castle. I'm not going to show them all, but if you use your eyes, you'll see plenty of them. From the ravine, there's multiple spots where you can climb out, like these tombstones, or over by the broken bridge in the middle of the ravine. There's like a broken wall you can climb up to get straight to the gatehouse. Over here on the west rampart, if you come over by the west merchant, you can climb up the scaffolding and edge your way around this little ledge, and that'll take you straight up to the rooftop. So if you die to the rooftop boss or something, this is a quick way to get back up to him. And here's a tip that applies to a lot of places in the game, but I'm talking about it specifically in the context of the castle, that no one seems to talk about. Enemies take fall damage, so if you're Wilder, for example, you can do clever things like that and pull a knight off the stairs. And sometimes, if you do it right, you can get him from a height where he falls to his death. There you saw he took like 50% of his health. That was like the furthest fall he could have taken without just instantly dying. Like, I just barely fucked that up. But yeah, so you can look out for like environmental stuff like that too and take advantage of that. And you see here, I climbed up the rampart wall to get back up to the southeast rampart. And then I wanted to try to be clever about killing this guy, but I just barely messed up my timing there, and so he didn't end up falling off. He might not have taken fall damage from that, though, so it didn't really matter. But yeah, and then I just hit him with my ult, because I was like, fuck you. But yeah, so try to look out for things where you can like dump enemies off of ledges and stuff, not just in the castle, but throughout the game, because, you know, the environment is really helpful. It's kind of circumstantial, but like in this case, for example, if I had a seal with the rejection spell, I could have knocked both of these guys off the ledge and instantly killed both of them without having to fight them. Here's another tip that's super helpful, which a lot of people miss out on. Just to the north of the castle, unless I think the crater doesn't have it if you have the crater shifting earth, but other than that, just to the north of the castle, there's this site of grace right here. You can stop by this grace to level up at any time, right? Like, you don't have to do the whole castle in one go. You can kill a few enemies and stuff, go level up so you have more stats to work with, you have more health, and then come back. And also, here's another tree. There's multiple of these trees down in the ravine. Make sure you use them. But yeah, so that site of grace in particular is really helpful. If you get downed a couple times and now your revive bar is at like 2 or 3 pips, you know, you can go to that site of grace and it'll replenish, or it'll refresh that back down to just 1 bar. It'll refill your flasks, obviously. If you're Wilder, it'll refill your 6th sense, so you can have another like opportunity not to die if you get hit by a fatal attack. A lot of the time, if you're fighting the rooftop boss, you'll spawn on the north side of the castle, and so it's really good to just take an extra 5 seconds, turn and hit the grace. That way your revive meter will be back at 1 pip, and that'll make it easier for your teammates to revive you. You know, take advantage of the fact that you can just go to a grace at any time. This isn't like base Elden Ring where going to a grace refreshes all the enemies. In this, you can hit the grace as much as you want and keep your progress with killing a boss or whatever. So if you need to back off and go to a grace, or especially if you have like a lot of runes or whatever, if you have like 80,000 runes on you, go fucking spend them before you die, or, you know, before you fight the boss and potentially die and lose them, you know? Now, before I end the video, there's one final thing I want to mention that's a lot more useful than a lot of people think, and that's the merchants. There are 3 merchants around the castle, so you see there's one in the northeast corner of it, there's one in the south corner of it, just next to the southeast rampart wall, and then there's one on the wall on the outside of the main keep. You can see from the southwest rampart, there's a little red arrow there. You climb up and go around the corner, and the merchant is right there. Whether or not you're just passing by the castle or if you're actively clearing it out, it's really nice to know that there are merchants here because you can stop by them and buy things like consumables and weapons from them. So consumables are a lot more useful than people think. People really sleep on the consumables in this game. Things like fire pots you can use to knock enemies down or like soften them up before they get close to you. There are throwing daggers you can use to maintain an enemy's poise damage to make it easier to get stance breaks on it. There's starlight shards in case you're a caster. They sell a bunch of different weapons that can have useful ashes of war or elemental damage for like the Night Lord, or in case you want to have something like sacred damage in case you run into a royal revenant or something like that. So don't sleep on the merchants, and definitely don't sleep on like consumables and stuff. Getting that shit costs some runes, but it then makes it way easier to get even more runes going forward. You feel me? So I think the merchants are actually one of the most important things about the castle. But anyway, I'm just about done rambling about the castle. A lot of really useful stuff here, especially if you know where to go. There's a couple rooms I didn't show that have like minor loot, like a bunch of crates and stuff in them. You can explore around the castle and, check that stuff out for yourself. It really is worth checking it all out, but I don't want this video to be 35 minutes long, so that's why I'm going to end it here. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any feedback about this video, let me know down in the comments. And if you find it helpful, please leave a like, share the video, and consider subscribing, because it all really helps me out. My name is Diabetor, and I will catch you later.